Welcome to another episode of Vision and Voices, where we delve into the intricate and dynamic world of family offices. I am your host, Chris Mays, a partner at Armanino, one of the top 25 accounting firms. Here at Armanino, I have the privilege of leading our family office industry, helping ultra high net worth individuals and families navigate the complexities of wealth management, tax planning, and legacy preservation. In each episode of Visions and Voices, we bring you insights and expertise from leading professionals across fields relevant to family offices, from legal experts and investment strategists to technology innovators and philanthropic advisors. Our goal is to provide you with the knowledge and tools to manage and grow your family's wealth effectively. Today, we have a special guest, Ryan Carey, the founder of Knowledger. Knowledger is a data service which connects investment data with accounting systems. This system enables family offices to have consistent values for investments across all of their reporting systems, which provides better insights for investment decision-making, cash management, and tax optimization, other benefits. Ryan, welcome to Visions and Voices.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the invitation.
So can you share with us the story behind the founding of Knowledger and what inspired you to start the company?
Yeah, sure. So my background is more on the software side. I was at Advent for quite a few years at SCI, and then I started my first company in 2008. And that company was focused on mostly Advent clients and doing the operations for that. And I kept seeing over and over again the family offices, the age-old struggle of getting the data to the GL. And there was one specifically that it was in New York, and I kept seeing they would say, nope, we can't talk. We can't talk. We have to type everything into the GL. And I saw how they were doing it. And the idea of Knowledger came up there. We did have one failed attempt before we actually made the now version. So as all success stories are, there's a bumpy road to get there.
So what is the primary mission of Knowledger, and how does it serve these clients?
We create journal entries. Mic drop. It's a very narrow vision. But in that's the funny side of it. But the other side is that struggle to getting the data over into the general ledger, because we can use our roles engine and all the connections, be it API or get a file, and then most of our clients are Sage clients, and then we're able to take that knowledge that's in the accountant's brain and turn it into rules, so they don't have to remember it all the time, and it just becomes a process over and over and over again.
So lay out the landscape a little bit for us, kind of give us an understanding of the systems that are involved and how Knowledger fits into that whole value chain.
Sure. The systems involved tend to be, we get a direct file from custodian, or we work with a portfolio management system.
And so give some examples of portfolio management systems.
So it might be Mastro, Adapar, Black Diamond, but Adapar is the vast majority of our clients. And then we connect to those, we sit in the middle, and then we move, and the rules sit there. It's the accounting, I joke and say it's the accountant's brains and logic sitting there in Knowledger, and then it creates the journal entries over in Sage.
And it does that automatically?
Not automatically. A human has to hit the button, but it does do that as soon as the human hits the button. Yes, all the journal entries we're connected very tightly with Sage.
And when you say Sage, you mean Sage Intacct, the cloud-based ERP?
Correct.
Okay. And okay, so you can work with an investment reporting system to get the data out from the various brokerage and alternative investment portfolios into a format into a journal entry, a summary journal entry that then can be implemented inside of Sage Intacct. Do you work with any other ERPs besides Sage Intacct?
We're just starting to work with NetSuite, but that's one client out of 36.
Okay. So do you have other competitors in this with Knowledger?
Yeah, accountants with eyeballs and fingers.
Oh, okay. So you're the only software or data that does
I
this.
joke and say risk clarity, but we're very friendly with them. They say they aren't a kind of competitor, but I would say they're the only slight competitor other than accountants.
Well, does it risk clarity does I guess they do a similar thing, right? Because they
Mhm.
take Adapar data and is risk clarity they're the manufacturer of InvestLink. Is that the connection between Agilink and Adapar?
Yep. So
Okay.
where we differ and we don't compete, I obviously don't go to Agilink and they don't go to Sage. So really, that's why they say that we don't compete.
Okay. And so the clients that are using Knowledge are like, what do they list as the key benefits?
That they don't have to do the journal entries anymore. So a lot of number one, and then number two is it's always when we get a client that's new to Sage, and even maybe not new to Sage, it's that realization like, oh my gosh, the detail, the dimensions, the other tags, whatever you want to call the dimensions, that they can put in the process because they don't have a human doing it anymore can really make the data that much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's mind-numbing work, right? Because you could have what 20, 30 brokerage accounts, and someone's got to, if you're doing it manually, the old way of doing it, you've got to go through a 7-page brokerage account, and you can't just get all the data out of the faceplate unless you do a very you do math.
Regardless, if a human's doing it, it's going to be pretty summarized.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as consistent as the prior periods. And realistically, how many dimensions can you remember that you have to put on there?
Well, you have to build a little cheat sheet in order to be able to recall it, because you're doing it, probably once a month. How often is can Knowledger does Knowledger do it on the same time frame as you would do a summary journal entry, like monthly, or can it do it more frequently?
Depends on the data source. So if you're connected to something like Adapar, you could run it daily if you want. We don't recommend that. Most of the clients, if they're connected to something like Adapar, will run transactions weekly. And then they'll do their month end and do their more positional work monthly. But if you're connected to a custodian, most of the clients working straight from custodian files are processing on a monthly basis because that's when they get the file.
And can you get some level of summarization, or are you getting the transaction level data coming through into your accounting system?
So that's part of what we do. So it's your choice as the knowledge or client. Do you want it line for line? Like when we do demos, we always demo it line for line. So you can say, oh, there's 300 coming in, there's 300 going out. But most of the clients, it's called roll up in Knowledger. They turn the roll up on. So if you have a muni account, you can have thousands and thousands of interest transactions. Hit the roll up button, and then you get one journal entry.
Okay.
But it's very specific per rule because you don't want to do that to your cash transactions. You want your cash movements one-to-one, interest, dividends, roll those up.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So if you got a separately managed account that's got some algo running high frequency transactions in it, you might want to roll up realized gains and all
Your parametric accounts, you're rolling those up because you don't want all those coming through.
A direct indexing account for sure. You wouldn't want to see all the transactions, especially on the big. I guess they rebalance twice a year. I think there's a significant number of transactions in each rebalance. Okay, that makes sense. So you were one of the first to build a family office specific software data system inside the Sage Intact. I mean, that had to. I mean, that you're a true pioneer there, because there isn't anything else that I'm aware of in the Sage Intact. And there's a thriving, robust. I went to Transform. There's got to be 150 to 200 different vendors that are or marketplace partners that are offering something that bolts on or integrates with Sage, and there's only one family office specific system and that's yours. What was it like building something that's just in a completely unique space for Sage?
It was at first, Sage was not, they were always welcoming, but it wasn't that big of a marketer. They didn't see it at first. And then as it started to catch on and they started realizing, and the VARs started realizing, it's a lot easier to sell with us right next to you guys. And it's a lot easier to implement and to manage it and then to run it. I guess it's just my focus on, I go back to we create journal entries, mic drop. There's a lot of truth to that because we're really good at it because it's all we do.
Right.
The first year, almost 2 years, it was slow, but then everyone started to see the light and like, that works. And you can't just throw another rules engine on it and be like, oh, that'll work for family offices. And like, it's a very specific process.
Yeah. I see that. I mean, because it's very idiosyncratic type of knowledge that you need in order to get. Because I know, having done, unfortunately, hundreds of these journal entries manually out of a brokerage statement. Like, there's certain custodians that it's very straightforward, relatively easy to do. And then there's others where it's very, very difficult. Now, I won't out anyone here, but my big frustration was there was only like maybe 2 or 3 custodians in the world where you could actually, they give you enough data in the 12 months of statements to be able to reconcile to the 1099 that you get for dividends and interest from that account. And so you'd always have to book a slight little fudge factor at after you receive the 1099 in order to be able to true it up to that amount. How do you guys deal with, when using Knowledge, are you able to get the brokerage, the summary activity to reconcile to the 1099?
We're only as good as the data. So the answer is yes and no. More so than not, no. It's not going to be perfect because it all depends on where's the data came from. If we're getting it from a portfolio accounting system, it's not going to match statement.
Okay.
And we'll say that coming right out because and I'm not picking on Addepar just because they're the most popular. It is not reconciled as accounting data. It is reconciling on shares, market value, and cash because it's a performance system and that's what it needs. And it's reconciling to what it needs. Is the amortization, the accruals, and the realized gain going to be what we need in match custodian? No.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. I mean, that's part of the challenge because I think when Addepar doesn't reconcile to the statement, a lot of times the client they get nervous and we have to show them, well, this posted after, in Addepar, it posted
and
after
timing.
the end of period, and in the statement it's posting prior to the end of period just because they've got a different way of looking at the dates, and so it doesn't reconcile perfectly.
Now we do have a new tool coming out. We just have it with one client right now where we're scanning the statements and then we do a delta process to the statements. So that obviously will match the custodian, but not everybody likes that. Some people like the accountant that's their job to do the reconciliation at the end of the month. Fine. Others are saying, great, we want that statement scanning delta process. And then we can put that on top.
Explain that a little bit more. What is that? I don't understand statement scanning delta process.
So if you take our normal client, they're feeding data from Addepar into Sage, and then they cross month end. There might be timing issues. Maybe there's tax lot issues hidden in there. So you realize gain is off. Then you get your statement and you say, why did my realized gains not match? Or maybe it's just a swap between my long and short term. I closed different lots. We have a process that you can scan the statement, and then we're going to say, what's the balance of this, your realized gain, your short-term realized gain in Sage? What does it say from the statement? Create the adjusting journal entry.
Okay. And what do you use as the system of the true source of the information, the statement?
Yep, the statement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, this whole area is just fraught with peril. I mean, we spend an exorbitant amount of time in exactly what you're you're describing right here, which is trying to understand the difference in the statement, what Adipar is saying, or whatever the investment reporting platform is saying, and then for any tax loss harvesting or just calculating the estimated tax, like what is the realized gain. Can you go down to that level of granularity in Knowledger where you're using tax lots?
You can. I wouldn't recommend it because we're always posting over to Sage, and we tell clients, we recommend to clients, that's what Adipar is for. Adipar is tracking your securities, your tax lot. Sage is not doing that. We've seen it done, but it's just not recommended.
Right. Okay. So you're still using the investment reporting platform as the system of record or a subledger.
Correct.
To do that. And so you still you need all the and you probably would want it anyways, the right basis information inside of the investment reporting platform. And is that might not be one for one inside of Sage. I mean, you can always true it up as you go, but I get it. So how long ago did you start Knowledger?
4.5 years ago. It was probably 5.5 we had, maybe even longer when we had our first try.
Right. And it took about 2 years to start getting real traction.
Correct.
And you benefited, I guess, from the fact that Sage Impact kind of became the go-to for the very large offices. We saw that trend back at least a decade ago, where a lot of the large family offices chose to use Sage Intacct for whatever reason, and it just gained enough support in the VAR community that people understood how to model family offices in Sage. And so was that why you picked Sage as kind of the partner that you do the most work with?
A little bit of dumb luck, and yes, realizing, and it was our first 2 clients were clients of my prior company. So the first one was on Sage 100, the second one was going to Intacct, and then the first one decided to upgrade to Intacct, and then it didn't take us long to look at it and realize, oh, we get why Sage is winning so many of the family offices, and then it was just off to the races after that.
So can you discuss the technology stack behind Knowledger?
Sure. So when we designed it, we knew there was going to be security concerns and questions. So we teamed up with a code no code rules engine called Decisions based in Virginia. So all of our technology sits on top of Decisions, which has the SOC 2. But the way we designed it is we don't store the data. What we store are the rules, and depending on your source data, the rules are typically just account numbers, be it your brokerage account number, your chart of account numbers, your dimension numbers, items like that. No PII in there. So that way we're on a large platform, SOC 2, and we're not storing the data, all by choice. It hurts us a little bit because somebody will say, I want an audit trail, or I want to look at what Knowledger did. And I'm like, all we have is a record of the number files and records in and number out. We don't have anything else.
And is there any AI inside of Knowledger, or is it explicitly just rules based?
Just rules based, no AI.
How do you see the role of AI and machine learning, evolving in the future? I mean, is it something that Knowledger will look at some point, or are you doing any active exploration there? Or?
Nothing active, but the building of the rules when you do the onboarding it's not easy. And I see AI coming in, or machine learning coming in whenever it would be a lot easier in implementation. And my partner, our COO, Bill Rouse, does all the implementations. It'd be a lot easier in those implementations to say, here, I'm going to do it for 2 or 3 entities, set the mapping up, and then let the machine learning take over and do the rest of the entities.
So what are the most significant benefits your clients have experienced by using Knowledger? And do you have a case study you can share with us?
A couple that come off of mind. It's the freeing your accountants up, because accountants are valuable, especially family office accountants. They don't want to have a lot of accountants. They want to have accountants doing review. So it's taking that menial work that you mentioned and letting that same person do the process, but it's clicking with the buttons. And then you're effectively separating the duties, because you don't want that same person that did the data entry also doing the reconciliation. You can say it's the same person now, but knowledger is doing the heavy lifting, and then your accountant is doing the reconciliation. Some of the success stories are what we've done with transaction allocations on Sage. So rather than the client having to post all the individual journal entries to the child entity, we're able to tag the journal entries as they come into Sage and then automatically apply the transaction allocation and then post it to all the child entities. There's been some massive projects with our clients that are just sending it to hundreds of, I'm saying children as children entity, parent entity, to hundreds of children. And that the volume on that is unbelievable. And then it's automatically done by knowledger.
So that's where you have an account that's shared by multiple entities, and so you're able to make all of the allocations to each of those entities for the security transactions in that account directly in knowledger, and it just maps right through to Sage Intacct, so that each entity has the correct allocation of each transaction.
Mm-hmm. So it could be used for, or you can think of it as a GP to LP. I'm using parent child. So you had one GP that is at the custodian, and this also applies to alternatives or directs. So
right.
when we're processing data, is if it's a brokerage account, an alternative, or a direct investment, it's data to us. It's almost irrelevant. What do you want us to do with this data? What's your debit? What's your credit? Or what transaction allocation do we hit?
Well, that's a good segue. So what are some of the common challenges that your clients face when integrating this investment, reporting with their accounting software? How do you handle customization requests? Like, what are the kinds of things that clients are asking for to be customized, and what does that look like?
Their family office, everything's customized. And when you start with Sage, I always compare it to implementing, because my background is implementing Advent. And I always say, when you implement Advent or Adapar, one of those systems, your buys and sells, you already know those transactions. Those are defined for you. You already have a security master, slightly defined for you. When you start a GL, it's a big white slate. It can be whatever you want. Chart of accounts, dimensions. The challenge we run into is when somebody's brand new into that, the chances of them getting exactly how they want 6 months, 9 months down the road, when they really understand Sage, is very small.
Very small. Well, then how do you address that? Like, let's say a client, they're a new family office. Like, who should they bring in first? They bring in Adapar or first, or do they bring in Sage first? I mean, what's the proper sequencing? Do they bring them all in at once? But that seems like such a heavy.
That's hard. I used to have an opinion on that. I no longer have an opinion. I say wherever the pain is most, bring that one in. But what we like to do is get your chart of account. Let's say you've got them both running. Get your chart of accounts, not you're implementing Sage. Get your chart of accounts 80% of the way done in pencil, however you want to call it. And then we're going to do a mapping process. And that's what my partner, Bill, is so good at that. And what he's doing is he's looking for the holes. Oh, I'm pulling in data from Adapar and I don't have my taxability. I'm making something, or I don't like my asset classes and I want to create a custom asset class. Great. You either don't do that reporting in Sage, or you define that data over in Adapar, because knowledger can't make the data up. So then you do that. You change the data in Adapar and you redo the mapping.
Right.
Now what's happened a lot of times, that 6 to 9 months when they figure it out, have a conversation with us, and they say, we want to change our dimensions and chart of accounts. Here's one of the biggest advantages. They can change it and we reprocess the entire period. You couldn't do that if you had humans putting it in. They might revolt.
Right.
There might be a coup.
Right. So what are your future plans with Knowledger? I mean, are there any new features or expansions that are in the pipeline?
Yes, it's the statement scanning is going to be the biggest change. And it's going to be interesting because we're already seeing people looking at it saying, I don't want to use a source system. I just want to do the statement scanning and create summary journal entries at the end of the period. Easy, easy peasy, clean, very few journal entries, and I know it's perfect.
And you could do that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and how far out is that?
It's right now.
Okay. And I mean, how do you envision the financial software integration landscape evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And what role will Knowledger have in that evolution?
I think there's more out-of-park competitors coming along the pike that are very specific to family offices, and we can connect to those. Getting the data in is, I always say, the easy part. It's mapping to the chart of accounts and dimensions each time. That's why we exist, is the hard part. I think there's going to be more and more of those.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur in the financial technology space?
Your developers are your lifeline.
Yeah.
And your implementation. So having Bill as my partner has been helpful because when it comes to family office accounting, he's kind of on an island by himself. He's very good. But also the development team is your lifeline, and their open-mindedness. Because if you tell them what to do and they just always do it, it's not going to end up well. They push back on you and give you other ideas. Don't react quickly. That's the one trait I've learned in this company and my private company. Let it brew for a little bit on both sides, your side and their side, and then come back and have another working session to spec out the spec.
Got it. So how do you stay ahead of industry trends and continuously innovate in this space?
Talk to clients. What do they want? It's the statement scanning is a perfect example because I kept asking, where's the pain? Where's the pain? I think if you follow the pain, and it's going to follow the trend.
But that seems backwards, right? Like, so they're going to do the ones that are doing the statement scanning. Do they also have investment reporting platforms, or they're just saying, "Hey, we don't need an investment reporting platform. We're just going to do the statement scanning"?
I think it's going to be all over the board, the answer, because sometimes in a family, that wall between the accounting department and the investment department, they want a wall there and they want them separated. So they could break that wall and say, I'm just going to use my statement data. You guys can do with that apart whatever you want. They wouldn't care then.
Yeah. So how are you guys getting the statement scanned? Are you using one of the companies that do that, or did you guys build your own internal engine?
We did not build our own. We're working with two right now. We haven't figured out which one we're going to go with. We might stick with the two.
Okay. Yeah. So and the accuracy's been pretty good on that.
Actually shocked at because I always said going in, I don't want transactional detail. I still don't want transactional detail. But when we did, the income on the position level wasn't totaled. It was on each individual holding line. And we're talking about a 50 some odd page muni account. They were able to scan each individual line and give us a total.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I didn't think it was going to be doable. I thought we hit a wall on that accrued interest, and they got it. And they got it quick. Like overnight, they got it. We said, here's a problem. Can you guys get this? And they got it.
Yeah. And because I've done a little bit of that and on a couple of different, actually, Microsoft Power Apps. I just completed a demo there and did the tutorial, and it's pretty good for invoices, right? You can take 10 or so invoices and you could train a model on it, and then you could have it pull out relevant data. The challenge is like you really need a secondary test to check that the line items that it's pulling match. But then you get all the issues with the tax and which number it's pulling, and it wasn't perfect. I guess, I mean, you have similar types of problems inside of brokerage statements, right? Where, it's not like a K1 where the 19 boxes are always in the same place. You got positional references. Of course, that doesn't mean that next 100 pages of notes and footnotes and tables are included. Yeah, I think that's interesting. The statement scanning, because like single biggest complaint with all the investment reporting systems is it doesn't match the statement, and that's always a limiting factor in terms of the getting comfortable with the data.
I'm excited to see what people are going to do with it, because some people are so skilled at Sage. Are they going to have us post these adjustments in a different book? So they could really run two books. One, oh, this is the Adapar book. Oh, this is lay over the second book to say, this is the adjusted book total. I'm like, a client came up with that idea, and I'm like, that's a wonderful idea. So your Adapar book stays Adapar.
Yeah, you could do that, but then what's the point, right? I mean, like, I don't know why you'd want the Adapar, like, unless you have the reconciliation between the two and you really understand where that offset comes from. I'm not sure it's super helpful. It might be more distracting or anything. But having all the fair market value data from the brokerages, the statements, and the alternative investments, I mean, it does make life relatively easy. So what advice would you give family offices that are looking to improve their financial reporting and accounting processes?
Don't fight Sage. It's a great answer.
Okay.
Right? That's your job, not my job.
So how can our listeners learn more about Knowledger and get in touch with your team as needed?
Website, just knowledgerllc.com, or hit myself or my partner, Bill Rouse, on LinkedIn.
Right on. Okay. Hey, Ryan, that was really great. It was good to catch up with you and get to talk to you about Knowledger, and looking forward to seeing how this podcast does.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the invite.